The purpose of doing this, there are a couple reasons. First of all, we wanted to see if we could do it. Could we connect an international group of people who are working on the topics that we're interested in and having a day-long discussion about the operational environment? And really, because we do physical events out at universities, but sometimes we can't get to somebody we want to bring in. So we wanted to test this on the confines of being here, and I think that worked. We were also looking for where we agreed on things and where potentially there were nuances. I heard a lot today where we have agreement, which I think should be a little concerning because that's how you get surprised. But I did hear some nuances. I heard nuances about on kind of focus on what might be more important than the other. I heard some differences in policy that might mean what our forces look like and organizations like in the future. So I did hear some of those things, which I think are potentially a big deal between here and in the near future. And I definitely heard from the team that talked here about NATO, about taking that. You think it's complicated for your individual country to work through this. Think about trying to work through it where you get some kind of, not to heck with consensus, everybody has to agree to it in 29 member nations. So that's a pretty complicated task for really probably the most important defense and security organization that's existed since post-World War II. So it's only going to get more complex for NATO as they look at that. So all of these things that we heard today, we are going to capture and put out the MadSci lab, key points that we heard and things that we thought, the nuances, the likeness, the risk, and we'll talk all about that for everybody to share. So if you're subscribed, you're going to get that. If you're not, you're going to be one of those people later that are saying, hey, how do I find out about mad scientist stuff? And I'm saying, are you subscribed to the lab? Because everything goes through that lab. That is your way to be connected and share. So that's a key location. Also, the Global OE Survey. If you're an international officer, send it back to your countries and share them and ask them to take it. It takes 5 minutes. If you're online, go to the MadSci Lab, look to the right, click on it. It takes 5 minutes. Share it with your networks. Starting in March, we'll have a series where we talk about all aspects of what we heard differently across demographics of age, demographics of where people are serving, military, academia, industry, how international officers saw it different than U.S. officers. We're going to pull the string on every bit of that and see if we can find some interesting data points that might help us in the future. But guess what? You won't see any of it unless you're subscribed to the MadSci Lab. So that's the key point for you. So thank you for contributing today, and thank you for your questions, and thank you for all the presenters, though most of you are probably asleep because you were in Europe. So closing out today, we have Major General Royalty, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff at U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command. General Royalty is a West Point grad. He's an infantry officer. He's served in every high-speed unit in our United States Army, especially my favorite 10th Mountain Division, Come to Glory. His last command before he came here he was the Commanding General of the 84th Training Command Unit Readiness at Fort Knox. So his life was all about building current readiness. And every time he gets involved in Mad Scientist, I see him grin because I think he's thinking about, kicking people out, be ready today. And sometimes we're talking about way out there in the future. But in reality, the business we were in is current readiness and then thinking about the future to figure out how to build future readiness. So General Royalty is a proven expert at that. So, sir?
All right. We good? Hey, so Tom Greco. So he told me to come over here today, right? And so I decided to come over at noon just to see what was going on. And there was nobody in the building, right? So being who I always like to be, right, the old scout platoon leader, I found some chocolate chip cookies and coffee and kind of hung out, and you guys never came back. So I said, well, I'll come back at 1600 to see what happens here. But anyway, so I appreciate the opportunity. I need to give you some certificates to get some good cookies too, all right? So we'll talk later. All right. Okay, so that was off script. I do have a script here, and I just want to kind of hit it real quick. So I've been kind of watching you guys from a distance, and I just want to tell you that on behalf of the TRADOC Commander, General Funk, thank you for this opportunity to close this session with you guys, because I know this is new and unique. Today's about expanding, opening our eyes to the drivers of conflict and changing the character of war. And I think you guys are on to something, because I've listened to Tom Greco talk about this when I first got here. You're on to something, and I haven't seen this anyplace else in my career. Hey, so this conference has been an excellent opportunity. It's a platform for us to listen to our allies and partner nations, gather a better comprehensive understanding of the operational environment. The insights gained here today should help us broaden our understanding in terms of global perspectives and the ever-changing future we face. So for a guy like Ray Royalty that started in 1983, it's gone so many different directions that I never, ever anticipated. You guys, I'll be retired, moving on, right? And some of you guys are sitting out there are going to be shaping this, and you've got to take this very serious. Because if you don't get it right, the consequences are ugly. So you got to take the time to do this. Tom, that wasn't in my script, okay? But I can just sense there's a lot of energy here, and I know there's a lot of folks streaming, but this is a great initiative. This is all about getting ahead of the adversary, trying to figure out who that is. And for a guy in 1983, 1984 at the National Training Center, and we were fighting the Soviets, that's what we were training against, and see how far we've gone from that. And we really don't know what the next iteration looks like. And it may not be a single actor, but you guys got to be ready. So with that, I'm not even going to use my remarks here, all right? So I just appreciate what you guys have been doing here, and this is work that goes unseen. Some of you guys are just going to have to keep going at it, right? Only when something happens does Tom Greco get the call. And sometimes I've seen the G2s in the Army start talking way ahead of everybody else and nobody's listening. And if you're in that G2 realm, you've got to make that work. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys. Lee, thank you. So I found out in closing that he bought the chocolate chip cookies. So before he said that, I went, I could have gone to the PX to do that. And he goes, well, I did. So anyway, all right. I'm going to close it. For all you folks that are out there online on the virtual side, hey, thank you very much. Thank you for hanging in there. And look forward to seeing where this goes. Cool? Out here.